Okay, so Laura Layla over on the Final Taboo channel has posted up some videos regarding the right to die, and I wanted to say a couple things about it and then see if I can't move the discussion over just a little bit. But she was basically talking about the need for this discussion, for being able to openly raise questions and talk candidly about the value of life in such a way that people can, under certain conditions, if they have chronic pain, terminal illness, have a right to die and to get assisted suicide. And what would that look like in the medical world? And what would be the criteria? Who would have to be involved? Who makes the decision? And to try to open that and to say that this is a way of respecting life and valuing life. And she was trying to ask, how is this different than, and how important are some of the distinctions of this from just suicide per se, the right to die rather than just a right to suicide, and what are the fine distinctions there, and then how is that even further distinct from some of these philosophies like antinatalism and ethylism? Well, it's gotten a lot of cross traffic and other kinds of issues. I think what I want to do is just, one is to chime in and say, I think that is really the discussion to have. I think more people ought to be really moving into the right to die discussion and what is cruelty, what is compassion during the final stages of life, and how does one deal with, I guess, again, some of those chronic pain issues, and the way to respectfully deal with suffering, people's wishes, and but to avoid certain kinds of impositions and just to open that discussion. So I think that's really important. But the larger thought that really came through as I listened to Laura Layla, and I really enjoyed some of her videos there, but it was, I think one of the issues that needs to be talked more about is what could be called, we'll call it the asymmetry of meaning. Yeah, it seems like meaning has an asymmetry when compared to suffering. So, take suffering. Suffering is something that just happens. It just happens to you. You don't have to do anything. Now, you can do things. You can go out and you can engage in risky behavior. You can do things that are going to bring harm to you and to other people. And you can do things that for what you're really getting out of it, it seems too risky, too costly, and we can shake a finger at it. And we can give all kinds of examples of that. But that's not really the point. The point is that you suffer whether you do anything or not. You could try to live your life as safely as you could, to live it, encased under glass, and you're still going to age, you're going to get sick, you're going to have various forms of illness, maybe rare diseases, you're going to watch loved ones die, suffer, and so there's some sense in which suffering just happens to you, and even if, the toothache of another person can't readily be seen, there is, I think, a recognition of the pain of others, and at the very least, it's that suffering comes without any effort, without any intention on your own behalf. When you move to meaning, though, it isn't anything like that. In order to get meaning, you have to have goals, you have to actively engage in the world. It's not a spectator process. You can't just sit and observe meaningfulness in the way that you can sit and observe your own suffering and pain. Your pain will happen to you, and as it's happening to you, you will just watch it. But meaningfulness comes from actively engaging in the world, trying to grow oneself, trying to cultivate oneself, meeting the world's resistances through whether it's athletics or through artistic engagements. It could be through study, it could be through conversation, it could be through forms of social justice. But it seems that so many people, they find life's meaningfulness through engaging in the world, through having purposes and goals, through trying to transcend themselves and their own petty concerns by alleviating the suffering of others, actively engaging in problem solving that really does help others, that makes the world a better place. It's like meaningfulness comes only through effort, through actual physical attempts at purposes that transcend one's own physical bodily concerns, one's own comforts and conveniences. And I think once you start to think about that asymmetry, about the fact that meaningfulness can be elusive, and if anything, it's something that is won in the world as one achieves and strives and sets goals and tries to bring about justice, which is very different than the kind of happenstance of suffering. And so I think, to me, part of it is more discussion would need to go on about that. What does that mean? It means that suffering is part of the price that one pays to live, and there's no way out, I guess, in some way of that. I mean, we have medications. There have been great advances in pain relief through modern science, but there's always going to be forms of anxiety and stress and hardship and loss and pain and suffering. There's always going to be these sorts of things in our lives. But the way that one can try to take such hefty costs and make them more worthwhile isn't something that'll just happen to you. It's not like meaningfulness will fall in your lap in the way that suffering will, but you can try to, I guess, lessen the costs of that suffering by enriching the value of the gift that you get in life. The more actively you can engage in the world, and by that I mean come to new ranges of self-understanding, new ranges of, I guess, dealing with others, recognizing new capacities for compassion with others, and being more concerned about social justice and trying to help others in a compassionate way than worried about your own animal-like conveniences. I think these are strategies that I would love to hear more people talk about, and I can't say enough about the asymmetry, I guess, between meaningfulness and suffering. Okay, thanks.